Anyway, back to the original point I wanted to discuss. The perception of reality is more important than reality itself. And what do I mean by that? Your perception of someone else is more important than what they really are. I'll explain that again. Your perception of somebody is more important than who they really are. Because your perception of them is who you think they are in your own mind. So for them, they are that person, even though they might not be actually that person. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a girl who's a hoe, but you don't know she's a hoe, but she's a hoe. She's for the streets. She's a bot. But using some manipulation, using some whatever, she convinced you she's a good girl. She convinced you that she's a family girl. And in your eyes, she's the princess, she's a family girl, she would never cheat on you, blah, 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 blah. While in reality, she's getting passed around on some party, fuck knows where. Your perception of her being this good girl is more important than her actually not being that good girl and being a bad girl. Because for you, your perception of her, your perception of reality, is dominant to the actual reality itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your perception of her being a good girl is more important for you, obviously. In your head, it's more important, more dominant, more principled, more dominant than her actually being whatever she is. So your perception of reality manipulates your own decision making and thought process. Now, what if we flip the situation? What if you're not the receiver of this? What if you are not the recipient, but rather the Aikido master of this? And I'll explain what I mean. What if instead of being manipulated by that good girl, whatever, what if instead of being the one whose thought perception, whose reality perception influences your own mind in a negative way, where you make decisions based on your emotions rather than the actual chessboard that is presented in front of you? What if in this case, you were the one controlling the perception of reality? Think about it. If the girl does it, if that guy does it, if Jordan Belfort did it, if that guy did it, why can't you do it? Think about it. Why can't you control other people's perception of you in their minds? Why can't you establish such a character, such a broadly based personality that their own perception of you is going to work to your advantage? Because if you can control someone's mind and you can control their thought process, or at least direct it into the direction you want them to go, to the path you want them to walk for you, for your own benefit, why can't you control their perception of reality? I'll give you an example. Let's take Jordan Belfort. He was conning his investors into thinking that they are going to make large sums of money based off the penny stocks or whatever that he was selling them. So he was falsely creating this perception of an elite investment manager that would quadruple and 10x their investments. And they believed it because they wanted to believe it, because they look at Jordan Belfort. Don't take any other celebrity, honestly. Take, what was his name? The guy who stole $4 billion from Malaysia and funded the Wolf of Wall Street, ironically. I forgot, John Lowe. There we go, John Lowe. He was friends with the son, the adopted son, of the Prime Minister of Malaysia, I believe. And he created Malaysia's first sovereign wealth fund. Anyway, John Lowe created such a perception of himself as this, again, genius investment strategist, personality, whatever, which allowed him not to only con his way into the highest circles of politics and power, but also allowed him to benefit and profit by $4 billion. How did he do so? Because he controlled the perception of himself in other people's minds. Going back to Jordan Belfort, he convinced everyone he was this investment strategist that would quadruple their money, and everyone believed this. Because a very important rule of, I guess, psychology, whatever, people believe what they want to believe. That's true. People believe what they want to believe. So why not guide them into whatever direction is advantageous to you by controlling their perception of you in their own minds? People believe what they want to believe. And you can set them on a path into believing whatever you want them to believe. Whatever is going to make you the most money, whatever is going to get you the girl, whatever is going to get you that political vote, whatever is going to get you into office, whatever. You can guide them, put them on a path that they subconsciously don't even know of. And that path will be advantageous to you. And you do that by controlling how they think of you, what they think you are. Now, a question might arise in your minds. How do you control someone's perception of you? How do you control what they think of you? The answer is simple yet extremely, extremely complex. You have to create signs that they can read off. I'll explain. If you want to convince a poor person that you're wealthy, rent a Lambo, I don't know, get yourself the new iPhone, get yourself a hot escort, buy some Gucci everywhere, Gucci, everything. You know what I mean? Wow. You pull up to the club, everyone's gonna think, oh, he's so rich, he's wearing Gucci, he's driving a Lambo, whatever. Okay. That's their perception of you. You're wealthy. Now you can convince them. That's how all these people were doing at the beginning of this course seller era back in like 2018, 2019. That's how it all started off. People started renting Lambos, convincing everyone they're richer than they actually were to sell them either a course on how to make money, and their main source of income was the course itself, not actually what they were making from dropshipping or whatever. But they were showing off to people that they're wealthy, and they all made this money by dropshipping or course, no, not course selling, like Amazon, FBA, whatever. And because people believe that they made all this money, and they see this money from these Lambos, the chicks, the cars, the whatever, they believe that they actually made off this money from dropshipping or whatever, and they buy the course because they believe that this course is going to make them as wealthy as this person. That's perception control. That's the basics of perception control. But it gets complex because, okay, but what if you don't want to scam 500 people from Instagram for $5,000? What if you want to go for the millions? What if you want to go for the hundreds of millions? How does that change the chess field? How does that chess change? How does the playing board level? How does it all look like? It gets more complex from there. Because, fine, you can convince 500 people off of Instagram, I guess, that, you're rich, you have a Lambo, blah, 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 blah. Probably not going to be as profitable these days because everyone has a Lambo these days, and everyone is a course seller, and everyone is making money off dropshipping, blah, blah, blah. But what if you go a level higher? What if you want to con yourself into millions? What if you want to con yourself into hundreds of millions? That's where it gets more interesting. That's where the game changes. Because if you were to pull up with a Lambo, Gucci everywhere, some escort by your side, to some, let's say, Hotel da Paris in Monte Carlo, people would think, ew. Because everyone there isn't wearing Gucci, Fendi, with some clapped escort by their side, driving some $200,000 Lambo Huracan. No. They're the ones pulling up on private jets with a loyal wife or probably some hot-ass 10 out of 10 model Victoria's Secret level escort that costs them a lot more than a Lambo. With a Pagani Huayra or a Bugatti Chiron Veyron, whatever, that costs $5+ million. They're the ones wearing the Patek for $250K plus. And they're the ones wearing Stefano Ricci, Loro Piano, no labels, no nothing. And while a poor person might look at those two and think, just judging purely based off of how they look. This is cliche. Everyone's heard of this on Instagram. We had that Succession thing, whatever they call it these days, low key fashion. No, it was like old money style, whatever, right? You look at these two people. Let's say you take two characters. One, let's call him Johnny. Johnny's wearing all fitted Gucci. He's wearing a golden, blinked out diamond Rolex. And he's got labels everywhere Gucci, Fendi, Prada, whatever. And we're going to have Bobby. Now, Bobby's a simple man. He's wearing a Loro Piana trench coat for 4.5k US. He's wearing some, let's say, custom tailored jeans that he bought off of the 38th Street or whatever it was in London. He's wearing some nice sunglasses that were only produced 20 times totally in the world. And while you might think that Johnny with the Lambo, Johnny with the thing, you think he's rich. But then you look at Bobby, and while he might not look like much at the first impression of him that you have, Bobby has $500 million hidden somewhere offshore in the Caymans. Johnny's got 25k in his savings left. You see what I mean? You see what I'm trying to say? Now, going back to my original example, my original point, what if you want to go a level higher? What if you want to con yourself into millions? That's where the game changes. Because if you pull up with the Gucci, blah, 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 no one's going to take you seriously. Everyone's going to think, oh, what is this guy doing? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? What is he doing? Does he think we're clowns? Or does he think we're joking? Does he think we're funny? Funny how? You know what I mean? So, when you get to a certain level of conning, of social climbing, whatever you want to fucking call it, when you get to a certain level of Aikido, the game changes. Because it becomes way more difficult in a way, but also easier if you know the signs to play for. For example, when you pull up to a meeting with let's say an old money or whatever they fucking call it these days, old dollar millionaire, that's old money. His granddad was rich, his dad was rich, etc., etc., etc. And he's not just some fool. He's not like a 20-year-old coke fucking drug addict. No, he's like a distinguished gentleman in his 40s that's seen the game. Or let's say your girlfriend is rich. This is a better example. Let's say your girlfriend is rich. And this is ironic of me considering this shit I have to pull off in 2 days, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say your girlfriend is rich. She has rich parents. And you're meeting them for the first time, and they're kind of trying to check you out. They're like, so who is this guy? Why does my daughter like him? What is he? Is he rich? Is he handsome? What is it about this guy? They're trying to check you out. And if you pull up in the Gucci, Fendi, Prada, they're gonna, again, if they're rich and they're like old money and distinguished, they're gonna say, what a fucking tool. So, how would you approach it? You're gonna ask me. Well, again, this is ironic considering I have to meet my rich girlfriend's parents in a few days. But this goes in hand. It's all the same. This goes in hand with conning the millionaire into investing $5 million to your startup, which you're gonna wire off to the Caymans and disappear forever. It's all the same. It's all the same fucking theory. It's just different applications of the same theory. Is what I'm trying to say. So, what matters is how you talk and what you say. And I'll explain. You probably heard this phrase. There are many red pill YouTubers saying that when you approach a girl, for instance, right, it depends on how you say things. So you got to say it confidently, etc., etc., etc. It's the same thing here, but a bit differently. Obviously, you got to keep the principles the same. You got to be confident. You got to be this. You got to be that. You got to be that. This and other thing. But to add to that, you got to go the extra level. You can't speak and you can't smell, not as in physically smell, not as in your perfume smell, but you can't smell broke. And I don't know how to explain this in human words, but I'll try. You can't smell broke, as in, sometimes you see a guy and he looks rich, he might sound rich, but you look at him and he smells. Again, not as in his actual physical smell from his body, but the way he looks, the way he talks. Like, on paper, he looks good, but you just know, you have a gut feeling that there's something wrong about this guy. That's what I mean by smelling for. And you gotta avoid that. And you avoid that by constantly being in the game, constantly. Like, the best way to con, the best way to lie is to convince yourself where you are fully convinced in your own lie. Now, people say that that's the downfall of many con men, that they believe their own lie, they start believing their own lie. I would argue, to an extent, that's the rise of most con men. Because when you believe a lie so much that you convinced yourself of it, it becomes easier for you to play the character you've created. Again, the perception of you that you created in other people's minds. When you start believing your own lie, and you start believing your own lie by being in the game long enough, where you're calling every day, you're in the game, you're in the momentum, whatever. It's 5-star hotel, 10-star girl, 10-star girl. You know what I mean? And it gets to a point where you stop thinking, oh wait, I'm broke. They're gonna find out. You're like, oh yeah, baby, I'm rich. You know what I mean? So it gets to that point, and the problem is momentum. It's easy to fall off the said momentum, and I never recommend to do so because it just fucks you up. I'm, I'm speaking from personal experience here, honestly. Momentum never fucking loses. Tate was right. I'm borrowing Tate's words here, but Tate was right. Momentum is key. You can't lose momentum. You fuck up momentum, it's very hard to get back sometimes. It's very hard to get back sometimes. Like, you have to constantly, every day, doing something. Whether you choose conning, whether you choose social planning, whether you choose this, that, whatever. You gotta be constantly in the game. You gotta constantly be doing it. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, back to my original point. You can't smell broke. When you're at the meeting with the rich girl's parents, whether you're at the meeting of this guy, that guy, whatever. You can't smell broke. You can't look broke. And by look broke, there are two extremes. You can't pull up with ripped jeans and dirty shoes, and you can't pull up with all Gucci suits. You know what I mean? It's gotta be distinguished. Even if you're not wearing original Loro Piano, if you're wearing, let's say off-brand, fake, replica, whatever, Loro Piano, you're wearing Stefano Ricci, you're wearing even, let's say, some Bottega, whatever. It can't be flashy. It can't be flashy. So it depends on the circumstances, of course. But what works best usually is a nice pair of shoes, nothing flashy, a pair of loafers. Again, it could be Loro Piano, but a nice pair of loafers, a nice pair of jeans that again doesn't scream. It's not chrome hearts everywhere. Um, there might be a little Dolce Gabbana thing in the back of the jeans. That's fine. That's perfectly acceptable. You get yourself a nice belt. Nothing like a Louis Vuitton everywhere. No, you could even get yourself a Bottega. Make it a bit not too flashy, but just flashy enough. You put on a nice white shirt, put a blue jacket over it. You're good. The most important point in all this is the watch. You gotta have a good watch on because people recognize watches. You could look broke. You could be wearing a T-shirt, but if you got a fucking Patek or an AP on, game is game. That's what I'm trying to say. So the watch is the most, I guess, important part of the outfit. But what's more important than the outfit itself is how you carry this outfit. It's not about the clothes you put on; it's how you carry these clothes. You could be wearing a Patek. You could be wearing even original fucking Loro Pianos everywhere, worth $20,000 each. But if you stutter, if you look broke, if you can't, if you smell broke, not look broke, if you can't make eye contact, you're shaking, no one's gonna take you seriously, right? Even if you have a shit ton of money, nobody's gonna take you seriously. So you gotta look the part first of all. So you can't be too flashy, but you can't be too hiding anyway. You know what I mean? And you gotta be subtle. That's the most important thing, actually. Yes, that's what I was going for. You have to be subtle with your outfit. Because if you're too flashy, it basically says, "Oh, I want your attention. I want you to think I'm rich." If you have not like if you have some I don't know ripped jeans on and a ripped T-shirt, it says it's somewhat of a sign of disrespect, actually, depending on who you're talking to. But it is a sign of disrespect saying, "Oh, I don't care about you at all. Like I didn't even put any effort." And if you're meeting with an investor that you want him to invest in your company, then it's probably not the way to go. So you got to be subtle. You got to put out little signs that people pick up on to think you're rich. A very important sign, you might think this is funny, but a very, well, not important, but just a very subtle one I notice these days is having a phone without a phone case. But not a broken phone like I do, because I fucking cracked it fucking drinking. But a phone without a phone case, without any protective stuff, a phone you can just put on the ground, like on the table like this. You know what I mean? That kind of phone. Because then people think, okay, so this guy can just buy a new phone anytime. Okay, they pick up on that. Again, unless it's cracked, in which case people think, oh, he's just a fucking degenerate. Which, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so you gotta have subtle signs. Again, you don't want to have an iced out. You know how all those rappers have these iced out Rolexes and APs? No, that says that, oh, I want you to look at me. No, you gotta have. Even if you buy a Rollie, don't buy a gold Rollie, buy a steel Rollie. You know what I mean? It's gotta be subtle, because everyone's gonna recognize. Well, whoever needs to will recognize the Rollie. What's it called? Wrap, wrist thingy, whatever. Everyone's gonna recognize it whether it's gold or steel. But gold says, "I want your attention. I want you to look at me." Steel says, "I have a Rollie, but I don't care if you notice it." Different things. So you gotta be subtle with your outfits. What you say matters as well. And again, how you say it. So we covered the basics, the clothing. We're going to cover how to look the part with your words. And I'll explain what I mean by that. When a person brings up an amount of money, let's say, well, whatever, you guys are talking, they're like, oh, yeah, I spent 150,000 skiing in Switzerland last weekend. You're going to be like, you can't be like, oh, what? You spent 150,000 in Switzerland dollars? Wow, you must be. No. You got to be like, oh, yeah, my family and I, we spent about a similar amount actually about a few months ago skiing in the Alps as well. And he's gonna be like, "Oh, what part of the Alps?" Even if you've never been to the fucking Alps, do your fucking research beforehand. You can be like, "Oh, wait, no, I actually mixed it up. It was Cortina in Italy. Cortina is a very fine skiing resort in Italy. Cortina, I feel like Do d'Ampezzo is the full name for it." Or if the person says, "Oh, I love Thailand," and you're like, "Oh, where do you go?" Even if you've never been there, you're like, you gotta have stuff like this in your head beforehand. You can be like, "Oh well, oh, I love Nikki Beach. Nikki Beach is a very expensive resort in, I believe it was Phuket in Thailand." So you gotta have this stuff on lock, and you gotta talk about. You can't be like, oh, and if you pull up to the meeting on a subway, no. If you pull up in a cab, no. It has to be, even if you rent the fucking car, rent a Cadillac with a driver. Trust me, I've done it before. And I'm 19 years old. I've done it before. It works. Rent a Cadillac with a driver. Whatever. What gets me is that I have a test in fucking. I have to be up in an hour 30 or 2 hours, something like that. Fuck. It is what it is. Anyway. That's the basics. Oh, now how you speak is important. Obviously, you can't be stuttering. You can't be looking down like, oh, so our company, yeah. So we've been on the market for a few months actually, yeah. And what we do is you can't be like that. No, you sit there. You sit down. You're like, so what our company does is we offer a service nobody on the market at this point in time can catch up to. However, what we lack is structural marketing, which we need funds for. The marketing plan is there. We just need your money. Let me show you what our product is. If you like it, tell us. You're going to be an angel investor from the ground up. You're going to get 60% of our company. If you don't like it, well, I have other people I can call. That's it. Compare that. I've never conned anyone into investing into my company, but that's just how I imagine it would look like. Compare that to, oh, so Oh yeah, we have so this company that we wanna sell. So this product that we compared those two, completely different things. Agree? Agree. So it's how you look. You gotta look subtle. It's how you talk. You gotta talk like you've been in the game. And honestly, for you to get to that investor point, you have to be in the game for quite a while, constantly every day, just chasing momentum. And it's the things you say, as I told you, like don't say, "Oh, wait, you spent 150,000. Oh, you must be." No, don't say that. So those three things: subtle looks, what you say to the person, and how you say it to them. That's the three basic principles of calling. I feel like.